With all three results possible on day 5, the excitement around the final day of the second test between England and West Indies in Manchester was real, and a moving day 5 did not disappoint. This is how the day panned out. Stokes makes West Indies pay. Broad makes early inroads as the West Indies batting falters. The plan for England in the second innings was very clear. They wanted to score quick runs and make sure that the West Indies bat as soon as possible. And while that plan may not have worked as well in the final session on day 4, on the morning of day 5, England meant business. Ben Stokes came out and hit West Indies all over the park. He was all over the West Indies, scoring at every opportunity given to him. Although West Indies did reprieve him very early on the morning of day 5, Campbell dropping a fairly simple chance in the deep off Shannon Gabriel, and Stokes made them pay, scoring 78 not out. Off just 57 balls, England scoring 92 runs on the morning of day 5 off just 11 overs, setting the West Indies a colossal 312 to chase from 85 overs at just over 3 runs per over. West Indies' start with the bat was torrid. They lost John Campbell in the very first over off Stuart Broad, out caught behind. The on-field call was not out, but Stuart Broad was convinced that Campbell had edged it. He went for a review, successfully overturning the on-field call. Chris Wokes then got Craig Brathwaite out LBW with a nip backer, and suddenly West Indies had lost both their openers. But their times were going to get worse because Stuart Broad steamed and swung one back into Shea Hope, knocked the top of his off stump. West Indies were 25 for 3 heading into lunch. And the story post-lunch didn't seem to change a lot. Roston Chase, another pillar of the West Indies batting order, gone out LBW. Stuart Broad. West Indies looking in all sorts of trouble. But that is when second innings specialist Jermaine Blackwood and half-centurion from the first innings Shamara Brooks combined their forces to not only right the ship for the West Indies but also ensure that they scored runs. Jermaine Blackwood in particular took his scoring opportunities and took on England, scoring at every opportunity that he got. The two strung together a 100-run stand. This partnership was frustrating England and they needed a breakthrough. They needed someone to create magic out there. And as has been the case of late with England cricket, every time they need magic to happen, they turn to Ben Stokes. And Ben Stokes did not disappoint on day 5 either. He came in, bowled one into the ribs off Jermaine Blackwood. Blackwood had no option but to play at it. He lobbed one straight to Jos Buttler, who caught it. And that is where the partnership broke. England had a foot inside the door. If England had a foot inside the door after dismissing Blackwood, in the very next over, Chris Wokes came in to get Shane Dowrich off a duck. Dowrich getting out for a pair in this test. England pushing that door open further. While there were some issues here and there for the West Indies, the one man who stood his ground and made sure that one end was held up was Shamara Brooks. He was not letting go of anything. That is when Sam Curran came in, swung one into him, and once Shamara Brooks was out, there was nothing left really in the West Indies batting. Jason Holder did try and frustrate England for a bit, but just as the game entered into the final hour on the final day of this test, England won this test match by 113 runs. So England storm back in Manchester and make sure that the scoreline reads 1-1 at the end of the second test. All eyes now move to the decider, the third test of this series, to be played at the same ground in Manchester. Will England regain the Wisden Trophy or will the West Indies retain it? All answers in the third test starting July 24th, where we will be back after every day's play to bring you a recap of all that happened. Until then, take care, stay safe.